Hello folks, in this video I wanted to share a tip or rather a skill that will help you in job interviews and job presentations. So first of all, what qualifies me to give you this suggestion or advice? So I'm a PhD scientist. I did my PhD in mechanical engineering from University of Illinois, and currently I'm a scientist at Dow Chemicals. So needless to say, I got the job after clearing the interview. I did pretty well. So I know a few things about job interviews. And actually you can see in the background, right? Like I have my PhD degree in my home office. I'm very proud of doing a PhD. And I also want to share this fact that I had to learn how to be better at job interviews through trials and errors, right? So when I was finishing my PhD, I sat for interviews on campus. And in my first attempt, I could not convert any of the on campus interviews into an on site interview. So then I stayed at Illinois doing postdoctoral research work. And then 3 years down the line, I sat for interviews again. So of course, my research profile had improved, but during those 3 years time frame, right, I improved my interviewing and presentation skills quite a bit. So overall, like this topic of interviewing or like giving presentation for jobs, right? That's a broad topic. But what helped me in my second attempt when I sat for job interviews was this one thing that one of my mentor mentioned. So are you ready to go to the life skill that I wanted to share with you? Okay, so here it is. So in your job presentation or the job interviews, make sure to highlight both I did this and we did this. So, what does that mean? So, I did means that you have to highlight your individual contribution and everyone is aware of it, right? Whereas we did means that you have to highlight your contribution working in a team as well. So, think about it, right? Any company that is wanting to hire you, they want to know, of course, that you are an individual contributor, right? That you have skills you have acquired in your college or grad school. But at the same time, they also want to know that can you work with a large team, right? Because these days, any great thing that a company wants to accomplish, it is dependent on the skill of the people and also their ability to work in a team. So that's why it's important that when you sit for a interview, for a job interview, or you are giving, let's say, like a 1 hour seminar when you are visiting on site for your last round of interviews. So it's important to highlight highlight your individual contributions, right? Let's say you did your school or grad school in chemistry. So highlight like what are the things you have done, right? So basically, I did this, I did this. So basically, you're highlighting your projects, but also kind of mention that what are the things that you did as a collaborator. Maybe in those projects, you were not the main researcher or the main person, right? But you supported someone else's project. So that is also important to highlight. And I wanted to share this. I was talking to one of my mentors at my current workplace, and my mentor said that if they have to pick between a person who is highly skilled but cannot be a team player versus a person who might not be exceptional, still has great skills, but can be a great team player, so they will like prefer that person over the first one, right? And this is just true for most of the workplaces, in my opinion, that they want you to be a very skilled worker, they want you to continue improving your skills, but your ability to work in a team, right, sometimes in a large team, is very critical. So the next question is that how can you implement this during your job interview or job presentation, right? How can you highlight this? So let's take three cases, right? Let's say you're a person who finished college, so you got a bachelor's degree, and now you are sitting for interview. So how can you make sure that this aspect of individual contribution and team collaboration goes across to the interviewer? So again, let's say you did your college degree, you finished your undergrad. Then you would of course share like the coursework that you had taken, the projects you had done, maybe your bachelor's thesis. So you would of course highlight that, right? And that will reflect your your individual skills that are suited to that particular job opening. But then you can also incorporate the things where you worked in a team. These days, I think a lot of the projects are a team effort, right? Or maybe your thesis, maybe you collaborated with people. So make sure that you highlight that as well. And I think it's a good point to also demonstrate or show that the project that you did, overall as a team you accomplished a large goal and you did your individual contribution, but you can also highlight that your other teammates brought some other skills, and then when you work together you gave like a better outcome than what each person individually could have done, right? I think you can also highlight your extracurriculars, where you could have acted in a team, as a where you would have you where you would have acted like a team player. So, for example, any volunteering work, or any, let's say if you were a teaching assistant or like you mentored, like your junior students. So highlight that as well. That will showcase that you can work with people at different stages of their career and you are a good team player. Now if you're a grad student, right, let's say you finished your masters or PhD and then you are sitting for a job. So this is what I did, right? I also finished my PhD, so this might be a little bit, so it is easier for me to relate to that situation. So in that case, let's say when you are giving your job presentation or interview, then of course you might be highlighting your published articles, right, where you have published as a first author. So of course you will highlight that. So make sure that that is a significant chunk of your presentation or the interview. But at the same time, maybe like 25 to 30% of the cases you also demonstrate where you were a second author or a third author, right? Or like even if you're the first author but you collaborated with a lot of other co-authors to produce some results, right, where it was clearly a team effort, where like the individuals came together and the total sum was more than the individual players altogether. So that will demonstrate that you can be a exceptional individual contributor, a skilled worker, but at the same time you can bring a team together or you can work in a team. And then let's say if you are like already you have been in the workplace for a long time and now you are trying to switch roles, right? So let's say you already demonstrated your capabilities as an executive and now you are going for another job. So at that point of time, I think your ability to mentor people is even more important. So at that point of time you can highlight that what are your individual skills, right? Like maybe you are more of a technical person or a managerial person with certain kind of skills, but then it's also important to highlight that okay, what were the projects in your previous role that you helped to move, right? And what were the things where you mentored your junior employees, or where you were the lead and you brought a team together and helped them achieve an outcome. So these are some of the ways that you can use this tip in your job interviews or job presentations. Now, I think if you just use this as a tip, right, then you would have to think that okay, how will I create a case to demonstrate like both of these things? But I think there is more to it. This is more of a skill that I think everyone person should have. Uh, everyone person should have when they are working, right, like in their workplace. So again, this is a important skill that you can incorporate in you, and it will make you a better worker, uh, regardless of what stage of career you are. And then it will also make you an awesome collaborator. So I think like this is a skill that you should incorporate in your daily lives, so that when the time of the interview comes, you naturally have examples to demonstrate that you are both a awesome individual contributor versus a team player. So again, in terms of like incorporating this aspect as a skill in your life, right? So there are different ways of doing it. Um, even as an undergrad student or a grad student or a person who is working in a company, always find opportunities to collaborate with people. Of course, develop your skills, um, achieve your goals, make sure that you know you are contributing uh, to the workplace or to your studies with your skills, but at the same time find time to collaborate with people. And in my opinion, I think to improve this collaboration aspect, right, we can always improve our collaborating abilities. And I think it requires two things, two aspects for us to ponder on if we want to improve further. So one thing is that it's important to understand like what are our strengths already in terms of collaborating with people and some of the weaknesses, right? So we can always leverage our strengths and improve our weaknesses. So what do I mean by that? For example, let's say if you are an introverted person, then you might you might not feel the urge, or you might feel nervous when talking to other people in your team, or like reach out and seek big collaborations. So that would be an area to improve. But at the same time, if you're an introverted person, generally introverted person are can be good listeners. They can like be good at communicating with people one on one, right? So this could be your strength, right? So if you are trying to work in a team, then find a time to connect with your team members individually, check in like how the project is going, and brainstorm on activities that you can collaborate on. Maybe like connecting with a big team of like 10 20 people at a time might be too draining for you, but you can do it one by one is to one if you are an introverted person. And always push yourself to kind of like develop those connections, even if it's like one-on-one meeting, if you cannot do it in a big group. Let's say versus if you are an extroverted person, then probably you feel energized when you are trying to meet a big group. So in that case, right, bringing a group together for brainstorming, or finding opportunities to collaborate, that kind of discussion might come easy to you. So that is your strength that you can leverage. But then you have to think about what could be your weakness that you can improve upon, right? And this is just an example. So maybe you are an extroverted person, but you are always excited to talk about your project, but maybe you are missing the aspect where you listen to the other people, right? So maybe you set up for a meeting with a group of people, but then you are sharing your ideas because you are excited about it, but then there is not enough time to listen to other people's ideas, right? So in that case, I think that person can improve their listening skills. Again, these are just some of the examples. What I'm trying to say is that there are always areas to improve. And if you have some time for self reflection, or if you have self awareness, then you can always find what are your strengths that you can leverage, and what are the weakness where you can improve. So that's why on my channel I have these videos around meditation, right? Because it's a tool for self awareness and self reflection. And once you have that, you can improve in all aspects of your life. At least that's my opinion. And one of the other aspect, after let's say you have reflected on what are the things you can improve so that you can collaborate with more people, right? Then the second aspect is, I think, important aspect is that you want to be able to communicate with people, right? The second skill is to be able to connect with your team members and see what drives them, right? What are their values? And this is helpful because if you know that, then you can find an effective way of working with them, right? And an important aspect here is that it's important to listen to your team members and try to understand what is driving them, right? So let's say one of your team member is very proud and passionate of their work, and they want it to be seen for their individual contributions, right? So if you are working with such team members, then always make sure that when there is a presentation for the group as a whole, you give them time to like present their own contribution. Maybe like always find a way to give them a center stage to present some part of the project, right? So that they feel that their contribution is seen directly. Whereas you could have like a team member um, who might not want to take the center stage, but then they need encouragement, right? They want the other team members to tell them that, hey, your work is very valuable, and they want to be feel appreciated for that. So if you have such a team member, then always find time to extend like words of encouragement to that team member. And again, this is a big topic, so where like you want to understand the major value of the team member, and what they desire in a team environment, and if you can provide that to them, that will be great. So this is the big topic, and actually drop a comment on the video below saying this, yes, I want to learn more about it. Then I can do a video on how to understand the values and the desires of your team members, and how can you be an effective team player around that. I can make a video around that. So with that, that is what I wanted to share for this video. Essentially, the big takeaway is that always try to develop a skill of being a great individual contributor and a team player. And anyway, as your career progresses, right, you will move from being an individual contributor to a more of a team player or a mentor figure. So that's the natural progression. So it's good that if you can incorporate this earlier in your career, right? Develop this as a skill in your if you are a student, or if you are already working in industry or academia in your job, right? And then once you can develop this as a life skill, I think it will naturally come out when you are interviewing for a job or changing jobs, right? It will directly come in your job interviews and presentations. And then as I said, like we discussed some of the tips to make sure this gets highlighted during your interview or job presentation. Make sure that you are conveying that you have skills, and you are an awesome individual contributor based on your skills, and also showcase examples where you have worked in a team to bring out a better outcome than what each individual would have done by themselves, right? So that's it, folks. I hope you find this video useful. And let me know in the comments if there are other topics related to job interviews, or let's say how to be a effective worker in your workplace that you want to learn more about. As I said, I am a PhD scientist. I work in a big company. So yeah, I think I can always share some of the experiences that have helped me. So thank you very much, folks. Take care.